Anyone online, Trent?
Hold on, there's something in that chat, let's check that really quick. Oh, just letting us know he's there.
Okay.
Nobody else on.
Okay, thank you. All right, then we'll shift over to our reports from student reps.
Alright, so for the month of February, starting with the academics category, the date for prom has been set on May 31st. The NHS is wanting to set up a student tutoring system with students tutoring all subjects available throughout the day. There's going to be the NEMFA music concert on March 13th and 14th. And so as part of the African American and Latino studies, some of those students of those class in the AP US history and jazz band students are going to the Cape this Thursday to watch the Harlem on My Mind act. There's going to be an NHS leadership field trip, which are going to send out 10 students to Trinity College to represent the OSHS chapter of NHS and learn about how to broaden the impact of the group. There's going to be an information session for students and parents interested in the France and Germany trip in school at 6 p.m. tomorrow night. And there was a meeting this afternoon for the Washington DC trip, which is going to be from March 20th to the 22nd. And students for the wildfire relief fundraiser, they're wearing blue. The College Career Readiness group is running a virtual job shadow with the Dean of the University of Hartford Business School on March 3rd, and they're having a tour of Lincoln Tech in East Windsor on March 19th. Moving on to sports, many of the winter sports are coming to an end and spring sports are starting to run out. Crew is going to have their preseason meeting tomorrow, and golf has also had their preseason meeting today.
With clubs, the Rambler has started running for their March edition, and I believe the February edition was released today. Drama Club, Tech Week and performances are next week. The Cancer Walk 2025 is set for May 23rd. Youth in Government is traveling to the Capitol building in Hartford for their overnight conference next week, the 7th to the 8th of March. Film Club is holding their own mini Oscar Awards at their meeting on the 26th. Students teamed up and were assigned a movie that they must each watch and create a presentation about why it's this year's Best Picture. And Student Government is organizing a blood drive for the end of March. I believe they wound up setting that date for the 14th of March. And they're also planning a Spirit Week to take place ahead of prom in May. And DECA is holding a dodgeball tournament on March 13th, which will be fundraising for the club to be able to travel to conferences and things. And then in student opinions, students are excited for the opportunity to visit France and Germany next year. It seems to be prompting a large enrollment in German 1, which will be the first year that the course is run next year. Students enjoyed the Wellness Day activities on the 21st, and students feel that the France and Germany trip should be open to all students. Despite the opportunity for a Spanish class trip to be created in the future, for students currently at the high school, there has been 2 international trips offered to French students and none for Spanish students, which many feel is very unfair. And that's all we have for you.
Jack and then Marlene.
Wellness Day activities on the 21st. Was that the entire day, part of the day? How did it work?
It was during flex.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was during like our flex period where kids just sign up to go do an activity of their choosing around the school for, I guess, well, roughly 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And if not, they just went down to the CAF and it was basically a study hall for those who didn't want to do it.
Or things like a wellness day, kind of a little more unstructured time? Is that something that students, do you feel it kind of increases morale and reduces stress those days? Is something students look forward to?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. A lot of our like flex periods on Fridays are advisories where it's like students have to stay in their flex and they have to do like kind of a team building activity, which a lot of people don't really enjoy. They like a lot of people use that time to do their homework and they just don't like to do that. But then we occasionally have advisory days, which is like you can sign up to do karaoke or coloring or board games. Like it winds up just being like you have a lot of choice in what you get to do and you do with your friends. It's a lot of fun. People definitely look forward to it.
So if there were opportunities to increase the amount of time for something like this, do you think the students would be in favor of it?
Yeah, I think
Rather
so.
than 30 minutes, a half day or a whole day interspersed?
I think that'd be really great, especially since it's only like once a month. give some people something to look forward to. It's definitely a productive time.
Yep, I have a question. Looks like, under your clubs, youth and government traveling to the Capitol building in Hartford. So maybe you can expand and tell me what that's about or do when.
Of course, so the Youth and Government Club is a group of students that kind of explore the legislative process. So every year, students, they can like work on their own or they can work in pairs and they write a bill and then they travel to this conference held at the Capitol in Hartford. It's through the YMCA, and so essentially students like they present their bills, they debate them, they kind of go into workshops and just, it's like basically like a mock of like the Senate process and voting process, and it's an overnight trip in March.
Steve?
It's not so much a question for them, it's more of a question for all of us. I think the students bring up a very good point about the French being able to go twice internationally and those who take Spanish not. It doesn't seem like we have a real good equity program there going on for international opportunities. Something that maybe that should be looked into since we are really big on equity.
I can't speak too much out of turn, except noted, and that there are conversations happening about additional opportunities.
Awesome.
I am finally getting myself in trouble.
Thank you so much. Great, Karen, any correspondence?
Not this evening, no.
Thank you. All right, next we'll need a motion on the regular meeting minutes from February 11th.
Second.
Moved by Steve, seconded by Karen. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, and next we have our ecology club camping trip request.
Yeah,
Hi, everyone. I'm Miss Dion. I teach environmental science and chemistry and probably any other science you want me to. And so we're gonna talk about the camping trip that we'd love to do in May. This is Talia's idea. So I'm gonna talk to you about how it connects to the strategic plan and all of the fun stuff. Okay, so students will be able to build a comfortable and engaging campsite. This is a hard part. Explore the natural landscape. These are the goals and rationale. Practice responsible environmental stewardship. Create connections with peers outside of the classroom. And learn about Connecticut's ecosystems. And this trip directly connects to the strategic plan. The following slide will elaborate. Okay, so high quality instruction. So some of the high points here is students will collaborate with educators, create personalized pathways and applications of the learner's vision. So collaborate with educators. This has been Talia's whole idea. She came to me to propose this adventure, and on the trip there'll be other collaboration with adults, set up camp, maintain camp, clean up, plan activities, etc. Again, this is all Talia's idea. It's also a unique experience that students can choose to be a part of. And then applying the learner's vision, again, because it goes back to Talia's brilliant idea. This is a student-led trip. It's initiated and designed by the students, and the adults are only facilitating. Safe and supportive environment. So we'll engage in challenging and culturally rich school experience that supports SEL and a sense of belonging, SEL, social emotional learning. So connecting with nature leads to the preservation of nature. You only protect what you know and understand. Connecting with nature is good for your mental well-being. From the National Library of Medicine, what is the impact of nature on human health? Well, 92% demonstrated consistent improvements across any health outcome where individuals engaged with a natural outdoor environment. And a sense of belonging will likely occur because the experience is unique. We do have a big freshman group in the ecology club, so that I think that's kind of great to kind of pull that along. Connection to building goals. So the building community and strengthening bonds amongst peers, supporting student choice, connecting with the environment, which fosters stewardship, and then creating memories through experiential learning.
Okay, and then hi, I'm Talia. I'm the president of the Ecology Club and I'm also a senior this year. So here are just some statistics or data that we've researched, while researching this possible camping trip. 97% of campers say happiness is their top motivator for going camping, while 48% of campers reported feeling happy almost every day while camping. 96% of campers say that camping improves their mental health. 66% of teens and 51% of children say that they are enthusiastic about camping. And then 96% enjoy camping with family and friends and feel healthier because of the benefits of outdoor activities. So I first presented this idea to Miss Dion after hearing from a friend, or after getting sent a picture from a very, very old Rambler that my friend's mom had actually found from her time at OSHS. And in the Rambler was, like an update about some of the Ecology Club's recent events, and one of the events was a camping trip that they had taken, I'm pretty sure, in the Appalachian Mountains. And I just thought that was like really impressive that they were taking such big trips as like a club. And I was like, oh, like a camping trip would be so beneficial. We have such a big group at the high school also. So I brought it to Miss Dion and we tried to get the picture back, or like even the original copy of the Rambler that my friend's mom had, but that did not pan out, unfortunately. But yeah, so I thought that was important to include in the fact that there have been past trips like this. Some possible challenges, safety concerns wise, we will have a fire. But we'll also have a fire extinguisher on hand, and the fire will really only be used for ambiance and s'mores. All other cooking will be done by Miss Dion. In terms of making food, this will be done on a mini propane grill and operated by Miss Dion or our other chaperone. And then we have a few questions regarding the trip. Our first is if we need an on-site nurse or if we can have one on call. And then our second is, do we need a liability agreement in addition to the regular field trip permission forms? And then some equipment limitations, campers will need to bring their own tents, and bedding, so like sleeping bags. And then we won't allow any co-ed tents. But we'll also have like a buddy system set up or some kind of system where everybody who wants to attend the trip will have a tent, and we'll get tents from those who have them. Yeah. Some of our next steps, the bolded ones are ones we've already done, but we actually have to edit the first one. So we had originally picked a date, but that date will not work. So we're thinking about May 3rd instead, May 3rd through 4th. And then second thing, Rocky Neck State Park, they don't open until April, so we're shifting gears towards either Gillette Castle or Chapel
Or Devil's Copy, somewhere local.
Yeah. And then a bus will be around $394. And then we're looking to fundraise for the trip with birthday t-shirts. These will be t-shirts designed by a member of the club that anyone in the school can purchase, not just Ecology Club members. And then funds from this will go towards people who need help paying for the trip. And then we'll send out our invitation to the Ecology Club. We're gonna max it at like 20 people attending the trip. And then we'll get those permission slips out to them, and permission slips will be completed with a list of must-haves, like a packing list. And then lastly, this is me and some of my friends planned and went on a camping trip over the summer to Kent, Connecticut. And I included this video. It's kind of like a vlog of our time over the summer. I included this video because I thought it was important to see how my friends and I by ourselves were able to go away on this trip and make our own fire and set up tents and sleeping bags and enjoy our time. It also just shows how happy we were. So I think this would be really beneficial for members of the club, and I think it would be a great experience for all attending. That was lunch.
That's on the way there.
Yeah. That's the end of our presentation.
Yeah.
I'm hoping you all considered, hoping that the video showed how happy we all were and how great of an experience it was.
Thank you so much. Wonderful job on that study presentation. And I'll open it up to your questions from the board.
Just a question, I think that they presented a challenge about the nurse. You know, and what, if that's been decided, you know, in terms of presenting that, you know, to families and.
Do we want to address the nurse and the liability question? or-
Yeah, the nurse could be dependent upon which students attended. There may be a student who prior nursing, so there are other trips where there are overnight trips, but whoever's chaperoning may be able to administer medication, so it would really be dependent on who, but that's something that we can obviously accommodate.
If I can interject, I can maybe hopefully convince Amber to go. She's an RN, Amber Sherber. So, yeah, that's another option.
And as far as liability, it would be no different than any other.
How many students are members of the ecology club right now?
So the amount of students in the club and the amount of students that participate differs.
Yes.
But
Understood.
I would think, I mean, in my Reminds and Google Classroom, we have over 50 people, but probably the amount who participate are like 30.
I would say it's probably closer to 2025. Like, you know, you kind of get, you get your frequent flyers that you see like every event. And then you get the kids that show up to the one meeting. And then you get the kids that just are spread thin, so they kind of pick and choose, so.
Okay, so if you're gonna limit it to 20 on this particular adventure, then you might have to make some cuts or see who is interested in participating first.
Yeah, I think it would probably, if we had to do that, I don't think that would happen, but if we had to, I would get preference to kids that, you know, participated more often. I keep track of that, so I know.
Okay.
Or like our graduate.
In the graduating, yeah, that's another solid point, yeah, for sure.
Check.
Talia, this is fantastic. Any opportunity to get outdoors and unplug is great. Are you mentoring anyone to do this next year?
I have a few kids that I think might be interested, like a few underclassmen, maybe a couple of juniors, but yeah. I think we have some people who are like eager to be more involved with the club, so they're great candidates.
Yeah, that's a great question. She has been such an incredible leader the last 2 years that I'm gonna be holding on to her leg as she graduates, because it's gonna be hard for me to let her go.
Well, actually, they get out of college early May these days. So,
Yeah.
just saying, if you're not doing anything next year.
Yeah, we do alumni hikes. Awesome,
Yeah,
yeah,
we did one this January.
Yeah.
That was fun.
yeah.
We have a question from Karina, who is,
Thank you. I'm just curious about, do you feel like you'll have the chaperones that you need? Like, do you have to wait to see who signs up to find out like male, female chaperone ratios?
I mean, we'll only need, it's 1 to 10, so I'm definitely going, so there's me, so, if we get up to 20, we need definitely 1 more. I didn't consider the gender issue. Certainly have way more girls in the club than we have boys. But I'm sure we can do that, we can find somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody will do
There
it.
are a few teachers.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, that's good. And then I'm just curious about like sleeping arrangements, how you don't necessarily need to like get into detail with us tonight about it, but have you considered how you might divvy up the campsite as far as making sure that people are appropriately tented?
Yeah, so I think once we know who's going, then it'll be, that'll be an agenda that I'll set and
Good.
maintain.
Good. Sounds like a lot of fun.
There a motion that's needed from us tonight to approve this?
there is a motion that's needed to.
Can I make a motion to approve this?
Yeah, vote on the floor, second by Karen.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All right, I'll just say one thing, Talia, thank you. This is a great example of student-led bringing something, an idea forward and working through the schools to make it happen. So congratulations on that.
Great presentation.
I'd like to say, big kudos to Vistiana for volunteering to, I have trouble dealing with 2 teenagers at a time. Good luck.
Thanks.
All right, with that said, we have a motion on the floor, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Okay, next, we're gonna be moving on to our Youth and Family Services survey. Good night. Good night.
I want to see them when they come back.
Yes, in general.
So I heard about that.
We've already got.
Yeah, we can keep it forward.
Yes.
Did you bring more products?
Yes, there's some of this, yeah, it's just the same thing that you're calling. Hello, how are you? Good. Hi. Hello. Good. Pat, would you like one or?
I can give it from you after Thank you.
Hey, well, hello, everybody. I'm gonna ask Ms. Brady to introduce herself and not know her.
Hi, I'm Brittany. Next slide, Trevor. Just us again.
Yeah.
I'm Brittany Ecker. I'm a board certified prevention specialist, born and raised here in Old Saybrook. I've walked through these very same hallways as the students that you can see here today. I left after college and came back here to raise my children. The connection I have to Old Saybrook is very near and dear to me, which makes me very passionate about my job. My certification involves training in behavioral health, and, demonstrating competency related to alcohol, tobacco, drug use prevention. As a prevention specialist, I deliver evidence-informed prevention programs in a wide range of settings.
Thank you. So most of you know me, my name is Heather, I'm the Director of Youth and Family Services. My clinical background is I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and licensed alcohol and drug counselor. But on a personal level, all three of my kids went to the system here as well. My youngest graduated in 2019. I just realized today is the fourth time I've been involved in the survey administration since it was 2011, 2014, 2017, and then now 2024. So I wanted to begin by thanking all of you first for being involved in the process of getting this approved and leading it forward. And importantly, I wanted to express my gratitude to the school systems, the teachers, front office staff, administrators, all wonderful leading up to the process, and then very invested and engaged the day of. We were all, my staff and I were in the classrooms in 6th and 7th grade for the younger students, and the teachers were fantastic. We're going to be doing a survey presentation during PD Day, March 10th. Within the school system, because many of the teachers asked, first of all, they didn't know a lot of substances that we were surveying the students on, and they asked a lot of questions about that. But they felt that knowing more about the results would help them understand their students' lived experience better. So as I had shared the pre-survey plan with you, I just want to circle back to that for a second to let you know how that went. I mean, it's a format we'd follow again the next time we hope to do this, which would be in approximately 3 years from now. So I scheduled and advertised 4 sessions for parents in different locations to come and ask questions, view the survey, express concerns, anything they'd like to do. 2 couples and 1 individual attended those sessions. 1 couple had a 6th grader and a 7th grader. The other folks were parents of 6th graders. Of the 5 people who attended, 4 stated they would allow their student to take the survey. So I was pleased with that process. And I think we marketed those sessions as widely as we could in terms of parents being informed that they were happening. So to begin the presentation of the survey data, the number of students who took part are as follows: grades 6 through 8, 211 of the 239 students, or 88.28%. Grades 9 through 12, 253 of the 340 students, or 74.4%. In total, 464 of 579 students, or 80.14%. So we're very happy with the sample size. So before we start, I wanted to reassure you, I always like to tell you that there was nothing within the data that indicated we're at a crisis point in any area in Old Saybrook. And we did do a lot of conversation with our survey designers, who reassured us that regionally and statewide and nationally, really what the trends they were viewing in Old Saybrook are very consistent with everything they're seeing across other communities of like size and demographic across the country. So I always like to let people know that, because sometimes when we're doing a survey, people hold their breath and are like, what are we going to find out from this? But I think you're going to find out there are more strengths here than vulnerability. So in your folder, the Old Saybrook High School questions are on the right, middle school on the left. There's also a 40 developmental asset handout, and that continues to be the risk and protected factor framework through which we design most of our programming. And then there's also an informational guide from Young People First, which I'm sure you're already familiar with. The municipality plans for addressing Connecticut's unspoken crisis, the disconnected youth study. And that, in case anyone's not aware, is where they're reporting there's over 119,000 young people at risk in Connecticut. Poverty, homelessness, mental health, and school attendance are contributing factors to being at risk. On the top is the info brief from our survey company. As we go through the information offered tonight, we'll stay away from drawing any conclusions. We can talk a lot about correlation, but we'll stay away from causation, because there's so many variables affecting all of that. We received information, as I said, from the survey company that what they saw in our results was very normal compared to what they saw in the rest of the state, where they've given that survey, and then nationally with trends where students are being surveyed with similar questions. And go to emotional health. All right, so emotional health, you can go to the next slide, please. So in the info brief, which you'll see in your packet, some areas of anxiety, 17.5% of the Saybrook youth reported having anxiety the past year, always or almost always.
Most frequent sources of stress and anxiety included academics, post-high school plans, and schedule. We'll talk a little bit later about how we divide that up, because not all anxiety is a negative or pathological. 14.1% of youth reported feeling sad or hopeless, so much that it stopped them from doing activities 2 or more weeks in a row. 9.2 reported having considered suicide in the past year. And I want to be mindful to say that's 9.2% that responded affirmatively to the first question that asked, had they ever considered self-harm? So that's not 9.2% of the entire sample size. Okay. Good question.
I'm just wondering, do you have an idea what that number was?
I will get that for you. Yeah, it was actually not as large as that makes it.
Yeah, because that number represents a concern, but if it's
The smaller,
10 people,
Right.
it's different. But
Right. And some of the gender differences, when we broke it down, there's different parts of the survey that we're not going through tonight, but for males in particular, anxiety is a protective factor, and for females, it's higher in the way they internalize it and become depressed. In the middle school, females evidenced a higher response rate for self-harm and suicidal ideation, and in high school it was reversed. Males evidenced that higher. Next slide, please. Last year, that's right on. Okay, past year anxiety. In the middle, you'll see some of the time, and again, that's very normal. Everybody has anxiety, all of us, and it serves a purpose biologically for everybody. So it's hard to determine if that's a constraint to their functioning or not until we dig down further in terms of understanding from kids themselves, what does anxiety actually mean to you? Where do you feel it in your body? How does it keep you awake at night? And that's it. Next slide.
And, I guess for a bunch of these,
Sure.
we have the bar for 6 through 8, and then 9 through 12.
Yep.
And then the third one of 6 through 12.
Right.
Why the 6 through 12 if we've already got the 6 through 8 and 9 through 12?
That's
What are we trying to show there?
That's the aggregate number.
But aren't we addressing, so it's the high school and then the middle school, right?
But as a
So,
district, I think the information is important for everybody to understand, like the aggregate. And by the time this is done, again, the 6th graders are going to be in 9th grade. So we'd be able to compare in 3 years from the 6th graders in 9th grade. That information. Next one. So I think that parents in the room are going to feel that this is a positive response. Comfort seeking help by source, family, and school. Parent guardian in most grades was actually quite high, about 70% overall. Friends and peer groups also high. School staff were identified more in the lower grades, and that could be because in the higher grades they have more autonomy, they're a little bit more independent developmentally. And then coaches and other trusted adults, are an area where they're, schools could look at that and maybe design some, have some opportunity to think about how can we enhance and support more relationship building between folks and staff. And we're not exactly sure what interferes with that besides time and stress and some other things. And this won't be a surprise to folks who do the mental health screener within the school, but it reminds us to maintain our focus on teaching kids tools around mindfulness, emotional regulation, self-soothing, and resilience building. Next one, please. Great. Okay, so I know that bullying, that word is not going to be used going forward very soon, but it was the phrase that was used in December. And I think there are variations in how kids understand that word and what they identify as behavior that constitutes that. So I'll clarify that a little bit in the next slide or so. Next slide. So good news is 45.2% of the students in all grades reported having never been bullied. And so that means, of course, a little bit over 50% have experienced that. Next slide. So the types that were broken down in the questions for them were physical, shoving, pushing, tripping, rumors talking about spreading untruths about folks. Money, and it's interesting that it's not grades 9 through 12 didn't report any of that. It might be stealing someone's money or other items. Threats, name calling, was the most popular form of what they interpret as bullying behavior. And then exclusion, not being included on a playground or in activities, invited to parties, or being involved in sports. The locations of bullying, again, this is an opportunity for all of us that are involved in this, to take a look at where the students are reporting the locations are that they experience this kind of behavior the most. And what can we put into place to lower them or become more aware of what's happening where. So the hallways, classroom, lunch and outdoor, online are the highest areas, but, next. Perception of having a trusted adult and feeling of safety is very high, and this was a really reassuring and positive thing for us to learn in the data. Very high percentage, over 95% felt they have one trusted adult. They feel safe within their community, they feel safe at school. The area that we want to spend some more time on enhancing is knowing how to get help. So a lot of first of all, we do talk to a lot of students who help each other when they're struggling, which is not this, it's comforting to them, but it's not a great resource in terms of advancing that request to get help. So we want to spend more time talking to them about identifying what the issue is and then knowing who the right person is to go to, and maybe like a 3-step plan for how to get help. So we'd have to learn more about what they meant by that, because we do spend a lot of time on the crisis line, on text to talk and things like that. So we're not necessarily sure what they meant by that. Next slide.
So now we're gonna be talking about substance use and perceptions. Question 26 that you have in your booklet. What was your age and year when you first used a substance below? We know in the prevention field that it is the earlier an individual begins to use substances, there would be a higher likelihood. I'm sorry, next slide. Oh, that's feedback. Likelihood for the development of addiction or long-term health risks. We also know that the brain becomes fully developed around the age of 25, which means that substance use during adolescence can have a particular significant impact on brain development, potentially leading to long-term cognitive and behavioral consequences. Knowing the average age of first use helps us design targeted interventions for youth. Alcohol is still the leading substance over the lifetime and past month. Many Old Saybrook youth who have used any substances in their lifetime are more likely to have increased behavioral health concerns, including thoughts of self-harm and suicide, having a hard time stopping social media use, reporting home life and scheduling as a source of anxiety, and feel less comfortable seeking help from parents or guardians. Please. This section of the survey indicates that parents and peers are the leading influences on youth decision-making. When you think your child's not listening, the study shows that they do, which for me is very comforting. This is proven locally, regionally, and nationally. In 2019, there was a national study done by the Center of Addiction that found more than half of the teens that took the survey said they believe that most common reasons kids their age chose not to use substances is because their parent would disapprove or because they didn't want to get in trouble. Next, please. This is question 22. How wrong do your parents / guardian feel it would be for you to be doing the following? And I gave them a list of a breakdown. Parents and guardians in Old Saybrook are doing a great job having conversations about substances. The one possible concern on this graph is the gaming more than 3+ hours per day, grades 6 through 12, came in over 50%. At this time, gambling and gaming is one of the newer topics in the prevention field. The studies that have been performed indicate that gaming for 3+ more hours a day has a negative impact on various aspects of life, including potential academic decline, physical health issues like eye strain, hand pain, and poor posture. Also, less sleep patterns, social isolation, and increase of anxiety or depression, particularly for the gaming that becomes addictive or displaces other important activities like studying or socialization. And that's according to the National Institute of Health. Next, please. Question 23. How wrong do your friends feel it would be for you to be doing the following? Developmentally, teenagers often push away from their parents and lean more towards their peers as part of the normal process of establishing their own identity and independence, where they need to explore their own opinions and social connections outside of the family unit. This is considered a healthy part of the adolescent development. Seeing these numbers for the perception of peer disapproval is extremely positive. Next, we're going to talk about the access. So the top 3 for alcohol are friends and peers, home with parents' permission, home without parents' permission, and the top 3 for marijuana are friends and peers, home without parents' permission, and internet. This next slide is going to be breaking that down. Question 31, for the substance below, please indicate where you most often gotten them. Alcohol has always been the socially acceptable chemical, even more so since the pandemic. In Connecticut, it is legal for a minor to drink alcohol if they are with a parent or guardian who serves it to them. Connecticut is one of the 29 states that allows minors to drink alcohol with their parents' permission. Educating parents and caregivers about the social hosting law can help with protective factors and knowing the laws. Another important job is educating caregivers about today's marijuana, and it's not like it was back in Woodstock. It is much more potent today than it used to be. As for the internet, they do not, as you can see, it's a high percentage for marijuana, where they are getting it from. They don't have to have ID when you are online shopping for it. All they have to do is check the box that says they're 21. For example, Delta 9 and Delta 8 is another form of THC that can be shipped from state to state because of the Farmers Act. The Farmers Act is a legalized hemp and created a loophole for the unregulated copycat of marijuana. And that was back in 2018. Nicotine is also can be purchased online and the potencies are much higher. Amazon gift cards are something to think about around holidays where hemp can be purchased on Amazon along with stash. You just type the word stash. This is part of our hidden in plain sight program we offer with the CAPS program. And this is that the clicks in the top that they carve out stuff. And this could be purchased on Amazon for anything. Along with the water. What is very concerning is acquiring in store. This means the store is not checking IDs at the time of purchase. Next, please. And to end this section on a positive note, as you see on your result brief sheet, that many families do have clear rules about underage drinking. Oh, sure, I'll say that. Reported clear family rules around alcohol use compared to 85.4 around marijuana and 86.3 around vaping.
So the next one's relates to the disconnected youth survey and comparing selected risk and protective factors for the aggregate 6th through 12th grade. Middle school students who have used any substance in their lifetime may report higher social media use and report having seen inappropriate things on social media, perceive substances as easier to access, report having been a passenger with a driver under age 21 that has been drinking alcohol. They may report not feeling comfortable seeking help from their parent or guardian, and report having had a problem with housing in their lifetime. They report they do not feel their life is going in a positive direction. The high school youth, Old Saybrook, who responded this way, who have used any substance in their lifetimes, they may be more likely to have a hard time stopping their social media use, report home, family life, and schedule as sources of medium or high stress, have thoughts of self-harm, have considered suicide, perceive substances as easier to access, and they report not having clear family rules around vaping, nicotine in an oral pouch, marijuana, or prescription drug misuse. Next slide. So toxic stress was one of the special areas we had added into the survey. Not all stress is bad. There's tolerable stress and positive, which is, encouraging your child to either do well in sports or academically. Toxic stress is a pervasive feeling, excessive or prolonged activation of stress response within your body and brain. And it creates greater risk for health problems like heart disease, diabetes, and potentially depression. Next. The toxic stress related to discrimination in your packet, question 40. Have you ever experienced discrimination, meaning you were made to feel inferior or excluded because of discrimination based on race and ethnicity, gender or sexual orientation, religion, or cultural beliefs and practices, or a learning disability? And you can see the responses here. Next slide. So connected and thriving youth, there were two different areas, questions 52 and 53, that measured protective factors and then at risk. Responses in Old Saybrook youth were very low related to working, volunteering, involvement in church activities or clubs. We are always made at the agency when we ask kids what kind of chores they have, and usually 0, which is very surprising. And there are fewer students playing sports and being involved in extracurricular activities. I was really excited about that presentation earlier. That was really encouraging. Next slide, please.
Either of you want to go camping?
No, but I.
Sorry, I know it's not my turn, sorry. Forget I
It
said
was great though. So as an aggregate, life moving in a positive direction related to those questions, they feel they have enough supports in the school. They feel they have supports external to school, and they feel confident about their future. So it's pretty straight across the board, just under 8% or over 8%. Next slide, please. So the at-risk factors. So absenteeism has certainly been on the rise, and it's a kind of a chronic situation across the country. So those who are absent more frequently have housing instability, have moved 4 or more times, been suspended or expelled, and have been involved in legal trouble themselves. But sometimes there's legal issues in the family system above them, and parents or grandparents. And so that's that. Right there. Next slide. So some thoughts about where to go from here. Of course, we're only one part of the team. We brought this data to you tonight, and here are the tools. I'm going to send the entire electronic file over to Trent after I get back to the building. There's a copy and a binder right here of all of the information, the entire information. There's 2 sheets on statistically significant at-risk populations that are identified. And so I'll be inviting you all to community conversations going forward. Each sector that is represented by this data has their own team already in place that are working on some of these things already. I'm not sure, and you can let me know if there was anything in here that was a huge surprise to you to learn. Most of you already work with you and have some idea of what's going to be coming. And we want to, as we have in the past, work with everybody to support them and facilitate the process. One area that Youth and Family has identified and has already begun to support, and find my notes now. So the survey indicates many positives, right? Youth report feeling safe in the community and at school. You can't underestimate the value of that. Many identify a trusted adult in their lives that they can turn to when needing support. More students than not are reporting they do not use substances, and overall, students report their family has clear rules for non-substance use. Some areas of vulnerability identified are underage use of alcohol and marijuana. It was higher during COVID, it went down a little bit, and now it's back on its rise a little bit. Ease of access to substances, and that involves some environmental strategies that our office are involved in terms of stores and signage and access for youth. And less clear family rules around underage marijuana use and vaping. There are conflicting opinions about whether or not marijuana is harmful. And so if the parent generation is ambivalent about that, it may be less clear to students that they shouldn't use. Each sector within this community represented or impacted here can look at the information and set priority goals for where they'd like to influence change. One area that we're already directing our resources to is enhancing our parenting partnerships. The data states how important you feel they are. And we want to reinforce that by inviting parents to own what it can mean to have that powerful role in their children's lives. The basis for these efforts are related to the Surgeon General's report on parenting under pressure, which reports over the past decade, parents have been consistently more likely to report experiencing high levels of stress compared to other adults, even pre-COVID. And anecdotally, we know parents report to us all the time, they don't feel like they're doing a good job, they don't know what to be doing, they want more peer support around setting consequences and limitations. We have a family support group now going on over at Infant Family, as well as a burnout group. And areas that we're focusing on for parents are social isolation for them, but also lack of parent peer support and contributing mental health concerns. One of the questions where I talked about lack of peer support, two of the who came in pre-survey to look at questions said they don't allow their 6th and 7th graders to have phones. And I asked, do you ever get any pushback from students? And he goes, no, we get pushback from other parents who want to know when we're gonna chill out and give our kids a phone, which I thought was interesting. So people are looking for other parents to help support their family values, and it's been a challenge. So that's been the area. Turn it over to you for a second.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank-
Yeah.
So our next steps is just. That's perfect. So this is the next step. So we are going into the, not wellness day, that's different activity. PD day, thank you. For March 7th, where we'll be discussing this a little bit further with the faculty, and admin over at the middle school. We do the parent caregiver community presentations, for those who are trying to figure out location still, but that's set for the 18th of March at 6:30. Old Saybrook High School presentation. We like to make that separate. Obviously, the schools are all in separate locations. That's been developmentally, that's where they are. It's a different school that's nationwide, right? There's a middle school, high school, elementary school. So we're like to keep that information separate as well. We do have a safety, internet safety presentation that's going to be virtual, Scott Driscoll. And that is going to be virtual on the 25th of March at 6:30. Also just reminding folks about around prom time, about social hosting and the laws around that. This right here is an example of our environmental strategy where we partnered with Park and Rec and the town to help put signs up as a reminder that on town property, it reminds community members in town the ordinance of substance on the town property. This kind of environmental strategy helps with risk and protective factors. We also do one in November for Sticker Shop, where we provide, my Youth Prevention Action Coalition, we go around to each of the, package stores and put stickers reminding people that it's illegal to purchase for underage. So we do that, it's actually super fun. The kids love doing it. So, we do that as another environmental strategy as a reminder. So now we'll take questions.
So Heather, I see, you've got the parent presentations, which is terrific, but oftentimes attendance is not great for a variety of reasons. So have you given thought to other ways to reach out to families? I mean, you've got such incredibly valid information here. And I'm sure parents, I'm sure you have a lot of information and resources that you share with them to
Absolutely.
assist with some of these issues.
Yeah.
So what else can you do to reach parents?
So we definitely do things kind of on a multi-pronged approach. And so that info brief, we're putting together more of those. So those will be sent out through probably Trent, and he's so good sharing information for us. We do find that parents are overwhelmed with the amount of information they get that way. So we're trying to be mindful, constant contact in our newsletters, which are available online, when people sign up for that. But a lot of the presentation, we're also trying to align with something else that they might be going to within the school anyway. A PTO meeting, a PTA meeting, back to school night. And it won't be a one-time thing. This information, we'll be rolling it out all year long and talking about it in everything that we do. So we're always at the open house in the fall for all the schools. And we're going to be doing it for the Board of Selectmen. So we'll be taking presentations so people can go online and watch it after the fact, because we know how busy.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go to Karina next. She has her hands.
Thanks. Just to piggyback on what Karen just said, I'd encourage you to think about maybe having a Zoom link for some of these meetings because getting there in person can sometimes be challenging, but I think it might increase the ability for parents to participate if there's a Zoom option. And I did have some questions about does the data is it broken down by gender? Like, does it give you insight into like X percentage feel bullied and it's, 10% are male and 90%
So we
are
have some information around statistically significant data points by race, ethnicity, and gender. Yes, we didn't go too far down that particular rabbit hole this evening.
Yeah.
Because it can take us off in a different direction.
Yeah.
But at different points in our presentations, that information will be available. And it's actually in the folder that we delivered here tonight.
Oh, good. Yeah, I figured that's perfectly fine that you wouldn't go down there, for this presentation. And just sort of a question or thought, it was surprising to me that of the people that felt bullied, the highest percentage was in the classroom and not in a more unstructured environment. And so that just surprised me. I was glad to see that it was a low percentage of children that felt bullied, but that of all places is like the most structured environment. And so that just surprised me. So I wonder, is there going to be any exploration of that maybe on the PD day or, do you have any initial reactions to that?
Yeah, we came here tonight because we promised you all the first look at this data. And then at PD Day, we are designing it to share some of that information as well as, yes, other areas that are specifically related to school environment. But that would be for the superintendent and school teams to take that data and begin to look at it and be curious about what it means.
Okay. And then one final question. The section on substance abuse,
Yes.
were you able to identify the percentage of students that do participate in drinking, drug use? It just seemed a little, I couldn't really tell from the way the data was presented. Is there a percentage of students that reported that, yes, I drink regularly or I have?
Yes, we do have access to that information. If they answered yes to the first question, they are represented in the rest of the data around substance. If they said no, and I do have access to that information, not tonight.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a couple of questions, but I was wondering if it's possible to get some feedback from Sam and JB. There's a lot to digest here. Do you have initial thoughts? Did anything strike you? Was anything surprising? Do you agree with some things? Anything concerning? Anything positive?
I was also very surprised to see that most of the bullying occurred in the classroom. But kind of upon thought, I felt that made a little bit more sense. Because just in my experience, I think a lot of people, like a lot of what I talked about with exclusion and things and kind of, a lot of that does happen in the classroom with kind of like a very, I feel like, I don't know if this happens in a lot of schools, but I feel like at our school, there's definitely a very like competitive academic culture where it's like people exclude other people like in group projects, or it's like they make a lot of conversation about grades and like just like building people up or putting people down, like all just in a very like academic sense. So I was surprised by that, but now that kind of does make a little bit more sense. I don't see any sort of like just like name calling in the hallway. Like it's really all more academic.
And that's an interesting point. And for the high school youth, we like to have kind of processing discussion groups around the data and say, this is what it said, and we're wondering what that meant to you.
I think that would be a really great idea, actually.
And you're also kind of thinking about, was it something that was said, is it a one-time thing that was said, or was it said several times, like their shoes were open, right? It's not nice, absolutely not nice. But is that something that was considered a bully to that person? So it's the perception, right, of what was being said as well.
I was a bit surprised by and you showed the age graphs that the average age for gambling was 11 and a half years old. I've been starting to see with some students in the school an increase of gambling, and there's been a lot of, I've noticed, just like on the internet, a lot of advertising, especially from like Mohegan Sun, on like gambling on your phone, so. Yeah, that was concerning to me.
Yeah, that's definitely normalized. And the gaming thing too. That's honestly, that's just like normalized is like I think people just really aren't aware of how that can be so hurtful. And then, yeah, I do think it's how it was talking about how people tend to get access to substances and how most of it was like from peers. I do think, I mean, like in E3 and things, that has been a conversation for so long, trying to like figure out the best way to breach that, but just bringing it up again, as we all know, like it is definitely a problem. I mean, I feel like every day I walk into the bathroom and just like fruity tooty vape smell, just like overpowering. It's like, it's just like, it's just such a problem, in my opinion.
I have a follow-up question for you two. Aside from health class, where a lot of these topics get discussed, would you two like to see more community conversation at the high school surrounding a lot of these issues, whether it be sexual activity, alcohol use, drug use, these different products, knowledge about what they are, and how they're perceived, gambling, the effects of screen time, gaming? Would you two like to see more education on that?
Definitely, and I think that there needs to be more of a push for it to occur during school. Because what you guys do is so phenomenal, but realistically, like you can run all these things after school, and the people who actually struggle with these things aren't gonna like go to youth and family services to talk about gaming. Like they're gonna sit home and game. Like I think it like kids are forced to go to school. So like start the conversation, start the education and normalizing kind of different values where kids are forced to like get it in their head and then can actually change their approach and their morals and then say, hey, maybe I need some help, and then walk down the guidance and get some help.
Yeah, and I think consistent prevention education is really, really important. Dara starts in grade 5, but I think some component of that throughout the grades is really.
Thank you both. I appreciate that. Now, Heather, you said that in 3 years, you're gonna do this again, so there'll be data you can look at for increases, decreases. Is there any past data?
The last survey was 2017. That was grades 9 through 12.
Has there been any comparison?
Well, I have not done that only because I've been told it's a different, it's a different community. It's a whole different kid. It's a whole different parent group. It would be very challenging to make any kind of sense in terms of apples.
Yeah, and we are, as well known, in a very different world right now. With a lot of
Coming out of a pandemic especially,
Factors.
so a lot of these results are really good to see after coming from a pandemic.
So 3 years from now, it's gonna be some really useful stuff. Chris, a
Right.
question for you. You're well aware of this, I don't need to tell you, but relationships between staff members and students is at the epicenter of learning. It's vitally important. I look at these comfort-seeking help numbers of school staff, and I would think that leaders would want to increase those numbers. Is that something that you potentially see being addressed as to what we can do to better understand our students and better improve our relationship between students and staff within the district?
I think that's constant. And we talk about goal setting and things, I think that's just embedded. At least that's my opinion. And I don't.
I have to go. Drive team just got activated. I apologize.
I.
Good luck, Steve.
Good luck. I've always, at least in my came to the brief period time period, something I tried to portray is that at the heart of everything we do has to be a foundational trust and relationship with kids, right? So we can be the smartest bunch of kids in the world. We can have the best, best back testing and the best SAT scores, but if our kids don't feel safe and nurtured and loved and respected, then what good is it? So Yeah, and that's not something that I'm saying, okay, I'm here, this is gonna be new, like, it's here, maybe. Constantly, you know, it's not, maybe not at the numbers everyone would like to see, but I'm sure, having gone through the same exact survey and by the same administrator, there's always stuff you can improve on, but yes, I think that's something that is at the core of a lot of conversations that we're having, not just with kids, but also with staff. And that mutual respect. Staff on staff as well, right? Because a lot of times we can't forget we're in the people business.
Right, and they're just putting pieces together, what Sam says, which is something that's been recognized before, this incredibly competitive academic environment. Putting that together with, you know, the pressure to always produce data and numbers and get through curriculum. Sometimes what's lost is pausing to nurture relationships with students.
The one night I don't make Pam come. The one thing I've learned, I've taught Pam since I've been here was, Chris, I'm gonna pause. So that's something that's important. At the core of what they do, yes, we want them to perform academically, we want them to reach their highest aspirations. We also want them to be kids. And I'm encouraged about what I've been able to see, and I think the willingness and I'm gonna wait to the end to thank our guests for tonight, but there's also a strong connection between, we only have them 6.5 hours a day. So that, you don't know when a kid's gonna be in a crisis. So they may have checked that box and said, yes, I have a person in my school that I am comfortable with. But if it's 4 o'clock, they may not find that person. So, you know, bridging that gap for supports for our kids for as much time as we can is also something that's cool. And we're very lucky, but you know, Sammy raised a good point. Some kids aren't gonna go to the family services after school. So how do we embed that into what we're doing throughout the day?
Our prevention team does go into health classes to present some material at the high school level.
We recently started going in once a month for lunch during Flexi Lunch to have our meetings versus at youth and family at night. So we've actually got we had our first one this last week, and we actually had double the amount of kids show at the school. So it was a positive thing to have.
Great. Thank you. And thank you both for
I was
sharing.
going to just say that I appreciate your question to students because your input is so valuable. So based on some of these results, then when you do your staff development, is that something that maybe Dave alluded to it, that you'll be able to share with them the areas or take a look at the curriculum to make sure that some of the areas that need shoring up would then be highlighted or.
I mean, and we want to be sensitive to sharing that with folks and pointing out. Yeah. So, you know, we've already had the discussion at the leadership level, like what's the most sensitive way to share this information in a way that allows folks to look at it and remain curious and not feel defensive. Because we do know everyone's doing the best they can, everyone's working as hard as they possibly can. So we want to share it in an environment that invites people to the table to look at it in a solution-focused way. And to let them know that there's support for making change. You know, and that we can all be available to be part of that team.
Yeah, bring it back to the basics, right? Why did you choose teaching, for example, right? Finding that want and will that they had, maybe it's just been for a while, right? And just bringing that back out to and have that conversation.
It also used to have, I think student advisory period. And I remember that this happened many years ago. And some topics could be raised, you know, at that students probably are feeling safe and secure to share that information. That's the tough part. You know, I see students kind of, you know, like, well, does that mean that what I'm going to share in this circle is going to be shared to administration? And so that's tough. That's fair. A slippery slope.
And I think the advisory period, I don't know if you have it.
I don't know if they have it.
Well, it's during flex and there's often, so we work with Ms. Santapietro to support that at times, but she also has a lot of other responsibilities. So potentially it needs more people to organize that effort to have it be consistently impactful. And so that's a kind of a discussion to have at the school level.
Thanks so much, Jill.
Just a thought, I think you're presenting this to the teachers, and I think kind of maybe intertwining that with advisory to kind of stress the importance of having those conversations with students, because I think the largest issue with advisory is differences in teachers. Like you have some teachers that really, it's like their priority. They really try to like create a great environment for their students. They're focused on the task. And then there's other teachers who are like, advisory doesn't matter, do your homework. I'm just gonna sit at my desk over here. Like, I think a lot of teachers just don't understand, but seeing the data of like what students are really struggling with, I think can be helpful to stress the importance.
And I think professional development day, not everyone's gonna be able to make it to our presentations, so we are putting in a request to have stop by a staff meeting. Or to be available within a school day where people could stop in at any time and go through some of the data.
Heather, since this is the kind of like the first time that we've had the younger cohort in the survey, so what are we planning on doing any differently, knowing that we have that cohort now and maybe integration into plans with middle school?
Excuse me, sure. So as I said, most of us were in the classrooms with the sixth graders, and it was very interesting that they weren't familiar with a lot of the terminology, which was fine, but neither were the teachers. So I think potentially having some teacher training with them if they're, if they're interested. And that's what the PD day was for. But some of our programming is, we're gonna make a proposal about having youth prevention programming in their health curriculum. Because we go into the high school level, but not in the, well, actually we do go in Mr.
We haven't done it in a while.
Okay, but maybe more consistently having us go in, at specific points during the year in the health curriculum to highlight these areas. With all the grade levels that we're gonna be surveying, I think would be helpful.
Is it only, just a follow-up, is it more focused on like prevention for substance abuse and those types of things? Because they're also like within the health curriculum at that point, they're introducing mental health behavior, certain things.
So
right?
prevention
Especially
is such
for
a broad
Yeah.
field, and risk and protective factors covers a lot of ground too, so it's, healthy decision-making and critical thinking skills. Lowering, risk reduction, not just related to substance use, but also maybe relationships. Physical sexuality, things like that, so it's a very broad range, but not for the younger level necessarily. But, to talk to them also about being an ally and how to stand up for someone who might be getting bullied or good citizenship, we call it. So, yeah, we are thinking about how to kind of direct more efforts towards the younger. They were struggling with the word marijuana, which was interesting. And so we haven't been able to figure out if it's because they think it's pot or weed.
If it's a different terminology.
Yeah.
That's something to kind of cover. If you want to know, like if they're on the street having a conversation with someone, if they don't know what marijuana is, and they're just going along with the conversation, they kind of need to know all the terminologies that it's used for marijuana. You know what I mean?
And sexting, the information on sexting was, it's alarming because of the legal consequences, or even if someone doesn't send the photo but receives it and has it on their phone. So on March 25th, when the cyber expert comes, a big portion of that is on sexting consequences and behavior. Because even if your son doesn't have a phone, he might get shown that on the playground or on the bus. So we want to heighten their awareness around.
Just interested in the interpretation too, and some of the questions around like anxiety, depression, et cetera, because I know that that's introduced that level in health in the curriculum. So like interpretation of that, was that any challenge within the survey or not, or?
Not necessarily. I think the words anxiety and depression have become so much a part of everyone's everyday languaging that it's kind of watered down some of the meaning of it. And so people identify as having anxiety or being depressed, but they may not have a full understanding of what that might mean. So I did hear some of the teachers saying, do you feel sad or blue? Explained in those kinds of terms. And for the anxiety, I talked to them more about, do you feel butterflies in your stomach or shortness of breath, do you feel in your body and anything?
So I'm sorry, Heather, so the entire survey, is that the binder that you sent?
This binder is
All the questions?
Well, all of the questions are in your folder.
The results.
But all the results are.
No, this is the result.
I was a result, because like the whole section that you had talked about, the questions.
And then this
sexual activity and all that.
statistically significant data.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm gonna send it electronically to you guys tonight, so you can show that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just give it, we're taking.
You sure?
Okay, and next is upcoming contract negotiation. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
that's okay.
always put the one up on the, okay.
I just think that-
I need the font bigger, kind of like,
Sorry, I want it.
okay, residency request, mouthful.
Okay, so we have a residency request that comes from board policy. There's a family with a son and a daughter who attend Goodwin School and Old Saybrook Middle School respectively. That they're moving, but they're requesting for the board to allow them to remain in their respective schools for the remainder of the 24-25 academic.
Motion to approve by Karen. Yeah. Need a second, seconded by Eileen. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And now our contract.
Now,
negotiation.
so there's two contracts. Typically, we inform the board at this point of the year how many contract negotiations you have coming up. Our collective bargaining agreement with our secretary's union expires at the end of the year. Mine happens every annual. But just, although if the contract doesn't expire, we will engage with our teachers union over the summer. That date is set by town charters. It's 240 days for the budget submission date, so that date will be somewhere on or around commencing on August 3rd. So it's not listed because the contract doesn't expire, but you will start that process, to start engaging in that process this summer.
Any questions for the board members? Okay. And we'll move into the employee disclosure.
So we did this recently, but we were made aware that one of our employees has a son who recently accepted a job with a company that we do some business with. That person is Heston Sutman. His son recently took a job with a company called Sportees. We don't do a lot of business with them. We've done a little over the years. He doesn't have any direct interaction with any Old Saybrook accounts, but per board policy, he disclosed that to us. That information is in your packet.
Not, we have our reminders here on the agenda, and then we'll just need a motion to adjourn. So it's by Eileen, seconded by Karen, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Right, thank you. Thank you.